Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of To The Point podcast. Hope you're all doing well on this Tuesday, full of random weather. 13 degrees, then 2 degrees. Then it's going down to negative temperatures. But hey, we're in New Brunswick, so we shouldn't expect anything less. Yeah, it's chaos around here, and chaos around the world of sports. And you could say it's chaos in the Breaking Bad, our show that we're covering as well, because we're getting down to the end of this, and we are getting to the heart of the show. What's going to happen with Walt, aka Heisenberg? What's happening with Hank? We've seen Mike. What Jesse is spiraling, worse than we've ever seen him. So a lot to get into tonight. Two really interesting episodes in their own ways, in my opinion. But before we get there, Shay, it's Tuesday. How was last weekend, and how are you feeling? How's morale?
Morale was good. Yeah, I was lucky. My girlfriend passed her CFE exam, so she's weight off her shoulders. And yes, big celebration. I had a couple other friends who also passed, so we had some celebratory drinks on the weekend. But other than that, just a chill weekend. Just kind of recharge and get ready for these upcoming weekends of I guess Christmas parties slash end of the year parties. So I like to give my body a little break before I start hitting the sauce pretty hard. But
Right.
no, it was good overall. How was yours?
Great. Yeah. It's gonna be hard for you to believe, but I think I saw one human being the entire weekend after
Who was
Friday
it?
at work. My mother.
Yeah, I
Uh,
figured.
yeah. And yeah, I watched about ooh, 15 hours of college football on Saturday, and then another about around the same on Sunday. So yeah, it was a lot of couching, a lot of notes, a lot of great, some really fantastic games. But yeah, I mean, college football, the Saturday routine is over. That is very sad for me. And, that's a big reason why I'm going to come up and see you this weekend, because you cheer me up, you make me happier. So I want to, spend some time with you, get in a happier mindset, and keep my mind off of no college football on Saturdays for
Yeah,
now.
you'll be replacing your college football with a bit of a fight night. Like we're gonna watch the card and
Yeah.
excited to have you up, but more excitedly, I haven't obviously kept up with UFC in quite a while, so I'm really excited for you to come up and see the place, and we can watch some people get their heads bashed in, hopefully.
Absolutely. I mean, toxic masculinity is my favorite masculinity. That's just my personal preference. And yeah, it's a great fight. Amanda Nunez is on the card, so we get to see her do her thing. The bat of the welter of the female fighters. Dustin Poirier looks to win the belt, so it should be a fantastic card. Can't wait to watch it with you, and if Warman can stay awake until that late at night. We know he struggles with that from time to time. But last week we ended the pod talking about Hank basically going for number two in the toilet, and he uncovers Walter's, well, you could say Gail's book that he gave to Walter, written by Walt Whitman. But he wrote in it, "To my other favorite WW," and it was Gail's writing. And Hank has basically put two and two together, that Gail and Walter were at one point cooking together.
Yeah, it's obviously a huge discovery, and like we talked about last week, a huge error you could say in Walter's part. Having that book lying around it just makes no clinical sense. Like he could have hid it in a drawer or had it tucked away on a bookshelf, but
Burned it.
on yeah, or burned it because it's the last piece of evidence probably tying him back to Gail. But I firmly believe that Walter kind of hides some of these little things for himself to get caught. You know how we talked about wanting that recognition that he's Heisenberg, he is the
Right.
man who killed Gus Fring. So yeah, it's interesting, but obviously it's a huge focal point. Uh, it being the eighth episode in a 16th episode season, it marks halfway point, and it only where you could argue it's the peak rolling down for the rest of the season for us.
Right. And a scene I forgot to bring up last week, and we do see it briefly this week. Walter goes for a treatment and he gets a CT scan, and it's not directly said by the show, but I think you can tell because we do see him vomit later in this episode. But Walter's cancer is back, and we learn that it's pretty bad towards the end of this episode. But I just thought it was important to bring up before the episode starts that indirectly, as a viewer, we know that he's not healthy, and he hasn't told anyone about that yet.
Yeah, obviously important. It's something that we talk about, and obviously he brings up multiple times himself. But yeah, no, looking forward to it. The beginning of this episode is really interesting too, because if you remember, we talked about the beginning of the season where he's, he just got to his birthday. He got this big old machine gun from some random guy. He's got hair. He doesn't look like Walter, but clearly he is Walter. And we kind of revisit that character one more time, and it's interesting because we're taking a little sneak peek into the future, but we don't know anything, no context of what's going on or what he's doing.
Right. Yeah, definitely some foreshadowing here. So like you said, he's got the hair, he's extremely skinny, and he pulls up to his former home, and the place is completely abandoned. It's got this a big fence in front of it, metal fence, but you see that there's a kids have cut a hole in it so you can go in the back, and in the backyard where his pool used to be, it's now a converted skate park for young children. And he kind of goes inside, and he's, there's no furniture. There's nothing. There's still the drapes. That's really the only thing that's covering, because he peeks out and looks at the children skateboarding. Otherwise, the house is completely condemned. And one thing we do see written on the wall is in graffiti is Heisenberg.
Yeah, super interesting. It's a scene where he just kind of looks, and it's right in front of him. But obviously, the secret got out, which is a big reveal, that he was Heisenberg and that people know. Which it's not something that we should really take lightly, because obviously, at some point between then and where we are in the present, he's basically outed for what he really is.
Right. No, absolutely. And so you're kind of thinking, what the hell is he doing here? He doesn't, it's his home's not here. His children clearly don't live here anymore. But he goes back to the bedroom. And as we recall, he has brought the rice in with him a few times. We thought he might try to kill Jesse with it. He brought it to see Lydia one time, and when he thought he had no interest for her anymore. And he goes to the wall socket, opens it up with a screwdriver, and the ricin is still there. So clearly the police have missed this, because you got to assume that they've given this place a full clean. And he takes the ricin with him, and which is interesting. But he goes outside and he's kind of staring at the house, and we just see him go to the car, and his neighbor is staring at him, and with fear, with a big bag of groceries in her hand. And he just says, "Hello, Carol."
Yeah, great intro, because it's got a little comedic relief at the end, but clearly he's well known around the neighborhood for being this, meth king / murderer. Right. And he just kind of willy-nilly walked back into his house. So obviously his neighbors think he's long gone, but in reality he's still prowling. And we also know that he's out to kill somebody, because why else would he grab the rice and have this giant machine gun just laying in his trunk like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's still up to no good. We don't know why, and like you said, there's no context to it, but it does lead us into later in the season, which is always interesting. And a big reason why I like the show is their utilization of foreshadowing. So we pivot back to modern day. Hank is walking out of the bathroom, and he's got like a shock / scared look on his face, Shay. He's completely blindsided. And he's got the book with him. He's looking out at the family, but he sees Marie's bag sitting there, and he shoves the book in. And when he gets outside, he kind of makes up an excuse that he's not feeling well so that he can get the hell out of there.
Yeah, and sure enough, Murray's like, okay, well, let's go. And you're right. He's got a history of, well, I would say, mental illness / panic attacks, and
Yeah.
I feel like he's on the brink of one, which we find out that he is. But he's getting in the car. He's like, oh, see ya, and then right before he actually shuts his door, Walter with the Holly stops him, which is a funny scene because after he finds out, he never really looks at Walt the same way, and he doesn't really try and hide it either. It's like
Yeah.
he kind of knows, but he's kind of just shutting up because he's not certain at this point in the show whether he's his guy.
Right. So he just kind of tells, well, yeah, like hardly looking at him. Yeah, no, I just don't feel well. Like, it's fine. It's fine. So they get the hell out of there, and he kind of leaves in a flurry too. Like he drives away pretty abruptly. And Marie's kind of going off about Skylar and talking about God knows what, Quebec or
Europe.
Europe, yeah, basically Quebec. And he's in the car, and like you said, he has panic. He has like heart palpitations. He has panic attacks, and you just see him. He's gripping the wheel, and he's not seeing correctly. His vision, and he's not doing good. And ultimately, Marie's like, Hank, what's going on? Hank, what's going on? And he crashes into this fence, in the middle of someone's yard. He exits the car, breathing heavily, and they call 911.
Yeah. This is understandable though, like with his past and his history with panic attacks and the news he just thought, or not thought of, but I guess realized that there is this connection that he holds. I mean, it totally makes sense for him to react like this, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, imagine learning someone you love, someone you trust, and you got to think of all the time you spent with them, trying to chase this Heisenberg, chasing this meth king. It was him the whole time. And I even think for Hank in this moment, he doesn't want to believe it's the truth. So he's having a hard time just processing that information that it could possibly be true.
Yeah, absolutely. And just like Hank, he kind of gets home from the hospital and he rips off the armband, and it's like, okay, I'm fine, like I'm back to normal. And he's curious at this point, and of course, being Hank, he has all the evidence and all the information from, you could say, Gail Bedeker's case / the Gus Fring file, and he goes and checks the notepad, and sure enough, pretty much the same writing in the notepad in Gail's book is the exact same, matching the Walt, or what's it called, Walt Whitman,
Yeah,
Walt Whitman book that was found in the bathroom.
So that's really all he that's not all he needs, but it's definitely a step in the right direction. That this is a weird thing, and you can see him start to react. So before we get back to them, Walter is out. We've learned that he told Skylar in the last episode he is no longer a part of the meth business. They made a ton of money. He's done. But now he's at the car wash with Skylar, and that's going pretty well. And he kind of pitches to her that they should buy another car wash. They have so much money, she's never going to be able to launder it. But what does make sense to the IRS is if we're a successful car wash owner, what do? We continue to buy car washes, and they can continue to funnel money, using that process.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the first time we really see them on board. Minus the maybe 5 seconds at the end of last episode, they were kind of on board with each other. It seems like Skylar's tolerating them more than she would normally, or she has in the last, I would say, 4 episodes.
Yeah.
So, things are looking a lot better than they were, say, the couple months that were in the show prior.
Yeah, absolutely. And she goes, yeah, like, I'll think about it for sure. Like, it's probably a good deal. And he goes, yeah, think about it. Think it over. But then we see old Lydia show up undercover. She goes to Skylar and she says, yeah, I just want a regular car wash, whatever. And she goes, okay, yeah. Just tries to kind of hard sell her. She goes, no, just give me a car wash. But she goes inside, and Walter's like, kind of gives her the look, but he doesn't really acknowledge her. she's like, I need to talk to you about the meth. And he goes, did you get a regular wash? And he's like punching in the numbers. And she kind of goes on about, the meth is 68% pure, and that's not good enough for my buyers. Can you come back for 1 week, teach them to cook? That's all I'm asking. But, he's not having it. He goes, I'm out. That's not my problem. I left you a viable business with Todd. The fact that you guys can't figure it out is not my issue. Deal with it.
Yeah, she even goes to the lengths of saying like that. I could be in danger, and he's like, well, that's not my problem either. Like, you're a big girl, deal with your issues. What I love about this scene, Juggy, is that the whole time I'm seeing it, I'm thinking of Gus, and I'm thinking of how Gus operated at Los Polos, and that
right.
Walter learned from Gus how to do that, and not to do business in a public place like that, but how to keep it on the low, and maybe deal with someone who's frantic like Lydia or Walter has been in the past when he's walked into Los Polos.
Yeah, really good point. Never thought of that. And Gus wouldn't even acknowledge your question. He'd just be like, so I get you a burger, refill your pop, whatever.
Exactly.
And what's funny though is he's doing it, and credit to Walter. We're hard on him for a good reason, because he's kind of a scumbag. But he's not giving her the time of day. But Skylar walks in, and Skylar's a perceptive person, and she notices the tension, and she kind of goes, Walt, who is that woman? And he goes, she's a former business associate, but I told her I'm out of the business and to not come back. But that wasn't good enough for Skylar. She had to send her own message.
Yeah, she kind of walks out to the car, and she tells the worker that's waxing the car, to scram basically.
Yeah.
And Lydia's standing there next to her car, and she goes, "You need to leave now." And says it in a really, like, I don't know, aggressive slash,
authoritative,
just aggressive tone. Yeah, and sure enough, Lydia's kind of frightened and is like, what the hell? Like, am I not going to get my wash? And Skylar sends her on her way, and I think she doesn't want any, I guess, trace, and she said, "Don't ever come back here." So basically, she's implying like, don't eat where you shit, in the sense like, we do business here. Don't come making a mess. This is not how you do things.
Yeah, and good on Skylar, because she said she's kind of tolerating Walter now, and he is making an effort. So, but she's making sure that if you give Walter an inch, he'll take 10 miles. So she had to make sure that was cut off. Well, now we see that Hank's not going into work, and he's kind of putting on this show that he's sick, but he's not. You see DA agents bringing him case files. And we see this montage of him basically going all the way back. We see pictures of Tuco. We see pictures of, of Gus, of Tyrus, all the guys that have worked for him that have died. And, Walt, he's looking at different pictures. But we see the video of Jesse and Walt stealing the methylamine that time. He's kind of trying to figure out if it was Walter doing it. But the real point of emphasis here is that he finds the drawing of Heisenberg, and it looks like Walter to such a T, and he kind of I think he at that point says, how did I not figure this out before?
Yeah, it's not even a great sketch, but the sense that you're putting glasses and hat over Walter's bald head makes it almost a perfect match for what Hank is looking for.
Right. So he's just like, are you kidding? It's him. Like, it's got to be him. Jesse, however, as we remember, was just given $5 million from Walt, because he said he earned it. But Jesse is not doing well. He is really struggling, and he's struggling because he's struggling whenever Skinny P and Badger are there. Because I don't really think he sees them as friends, but he can't be alone when he's really in this bad state of mind. So he's just kind of sitting there staring into space, thinking about God knows what. And Skinny P and Badger eating pizza, talking about Star Trek, and having sex in space and going on. And he's just finally had enough. And Badger's like, "You're gonna miss the good part." And Jesse makes a beeline to Better Call Saul.
Yes, our favorite lawyer.
Yeah.
And it's this funny scene where he's in the waiting room. Saul's getting a wank or whatever he is, and in his room, and Jesse's sitting there with the two duffel bags filled with $5 million, and he's kind of looking around like, is he in here? And in classic, you could say Walt form, when he doesn't get what he wants, he's just going to he's going to be a nuisance. Lights up a joint in the weight room. Big Huel sitting there, he's like, you can't do that, man. and finally, the receptionist just kind of calls Saul and says, like, Pinkman's out here, like, just get him the hell out. It's a small scene, but it also shows like Jesse's kind of at that state where he doesn't really care anymore about anything.
He gives zero fucks when it comes to this. Yeah, he's blowing smoke like at Huel, like he's done with this. So he goes in there and Saul's like, "Are you kidding me? Like, you have $5 million is sitting out here?" And he goes, "Yeah, I want you to give $2.5 million to Kaylee Ehrmantraut, and I want you to give $2.5 million to Drew Sharp." And Drew Sharp was the little kid on the motorbike from a few episodes back, if you recall us talking about that Todd killed. And just on the surface, this is a terrible idea. Who sends $2.5 million to the family of a kid that, of course, is a tragedy, but it's a huge red flag. Also, that money's going to be seized, or the family's just going to be like, okay, what the hell? We get it. And Saul's point to Jesse is Kaylee Ehrmantraut. They've taken $2+ million from her account before. They're going to do it again. This is not going to work. Like, Jesse, think straight. Like, this is just a really stupid idea.
Yeah, exactly. It's it's Jesse thinking, okay, I've got to get rid of this money, and where are the problems in my life that I think I can heal. And obviously that death of that kid Drew is just weighing on his shoulders clearly. And we find out later that he doesn't think Mike has gone anywhere except maybe the ground.
Right. So he leaves. He says, "Saul, do you want me to get another lawyer? Because I'll go do it myself." And she's like, no. Like, don't worry, I'll get it done. Literally the second he's out of the door, he calls Walter. And Walt goes to Jesse's and he's kind of like, "Jesse, what are you doing? Like, you earned this. Like, you deserve this money." And what happened to Drew Sharp is terrible. I feel bad about it, like you do. But you know what? Like, it is what it is. And Jesse's kind of like, well, it's blood money. And he's like, Mike can take care of himself, Jesse. Like, he can give money to his granddaughter. And to your point, well, he says, Jesse, who's a smart guy, says, "I don't think Mike can take care of his family because I know you, and you killed Mike's 9 men. And Mike wouldn't just let that happen. You'd be looking over your shoulder your entire life. So I think you killed Mike, and you know damn well he's never coming back to Albuquerque."
I know it's kind of a huge accusation when you think about it. And
yeah.
Really, Walter's response is just basically like no, like I'm not, I'm not looking over my shoulder, but Mike's not dead at the same time. And I don't think it's enough to convince Jesse that that's the truth either. I think Jesse deep down finally knows like Mike is dead, and there's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah, I think he knows that too, because he kind of, when Walt says that, he kind of just, he's staring out at the wall, and he's not anywhere. He's not happy about it. He doesn't seem relieved. He's just kind of like, I know he's gone. Somebody that actually cared about him another person is gone from his life. Jane is dead. Andrea is kind of out of his life. Mike is dead. Like, everybody that he gets close to seems to go away. His parents are really shitty people. So, you kind of see he's actually on the verge of tears looking at the wall, because he's he's done with this. I mentioned this off the top about him getting the CT scan in the last episode, but they're having a meal, the family meal. The kids are home. That's another note here, but Walt excuses himself to go throw up. And you see he's hiding pills underneath the counter. but he's throwing up. Another thing you learned from Gus is he puts the towel underneath his knees so that, his knees aren't getting hurt on the floor. But, he's throwing up, he's clearly sick, and he's not doing well.
No, yeah, I mean, it's unfortunately for Walt, whenever his moral starts to get better, his moral compass starts to switch the opposite way.
Yeah.
I mean, his health just decides to decline. So, yeah, I mean, he's doing his best to hide it, but at this point, what are you hiding from, right? Like, well,
Yeah.
what do you think he's not telling his family for?
Yeah, I mean, you're out of the business. At this point, you don't know anything is wrong. So you'd assume if I'm going to die in the next 6 to 12 months, I'd like to spend it with my family. I mean, I guess it would be hard telling your kids that you're not going to be around in a year. We've never had that I've never had that conversation with somebody. Obviously, we've had family members that we've lost, and you hear that conversation, and reality sets in that they're not going to be there. Maybe it come the next Christmas, or whatever, what have you. But this is Walter, another secret that's unnecessary that is going to make people angry, and yet he does it probably for his own hubris, his own ego.
Probably, yeah. No, that's probably it.
But in the midst of him throwing up, he notices that his book is gone, and he starts to search for it under the bed. He's looking for it, and he's even starts to worry about it, Shay, because he wakes up in the middle of the night to go check something.
Yeah. He goes out into the yard and is kind of looking around, and he says, "You know what? Let me just check my car for a second." And he's checking, and finally gets the passenger, back door, and he finds the same tracker that him and Hank used to track Gus Fring's car. And he's kind of in a panic as he looks around and realizes Hank is haunting me, and this is not great.
Yeah, he realized, holy shit, like, I'm in deep trouble here. He found that book, and I could be made here, so to speak, in the near future. Before we get to the last scene, which is just iconic in this episode, Jesse had that conversation, but he's carrying those bags of cash around. He's out by his old favorite hangout there, the old dog,
Hot dog something.
hot dog, yeah. And there's this homeless man that comes to him, and he goes, do you have any change or anything? And Jesse's just kind of staring into space, but he kind of snaps out of it when the guy's walking away. He's like, no, come here. And he hands him a wad of cash. I believe it's $10,000 or close to it. And the homeless guy's just kind of like, he's even like, can I take this? Like, am I allowed to? And he's kind of shooken up about it, but Jesse, it's the first of Jesse starting to give away his fortune.
Yeah. Is his little drive-by at this time, or is that in the next episode?
That's the start of the next episode.
Okay, so we'll get to that. But yeah, he's on a spiral, and it's like that money is like cancer to him, and he has to get rid of it because it's just hurting him to keep it, because he doesn't feel like he deserves to keep it. You know what I mean? So he's clearly on a good spot. You could say that he needs a therapist, but I don't even think a therapist could probably fix all of his problems.
No, it'd be tough, because he'd have to be really open about everything. And I'm not, it's hard to be open about killing people, and, cooking meth. So Hank is still not going to work. He's still doing everything from the garage. He's getting more and more case files dropped off to him. And who pulls into the driveway but Walt? And we could see Hank, he's just like, holy shit, like, uh-oh. And, Walt shakes the hands of the DA agents, shaking hands, kissing babies. And he kind of says, they had this small talk, about the illness. And he says, how's the car wash? Oh, it's great. And Walt's getting ready to leave. And he says, oh, by the way, Hank, I have to ask you about this. And he flashes him the tracker. He says, this looks an awful lot like the one we used for Gus Fring. And I have to ask, are you doing this? And as he does this, Hank closes the garage door.
Yeah, ready for the showdown of the giants. And he closes the door, and I totally forgot about this, but he hauls off and hits Walter as hard as he
His
possibly
face
can.
before is really scary.
Oh well, Walter goes, hey, what? Are you okay, buddy? Like, you're giving
Yeah.
me this face. And Hank's had enough. He's basically determined that Walter is who he thinks he is,
Yeah.
and like I
Hammer
said,
took
hauls off on him, and then puts him up against the door and basically just ties into him for everything he's done. He says, you crashed that car on purpose,
yeah.
going towards the laundromat. You were the one who
You
killed him.
called Marie. You know my phone number, and you
Yeah,
faked that she was gonna die. You blew up a nursing home. Like, he's going through the laundry list of things, and Walt's like, "But we're family, Hank. Like, come on." And he goes, "Fuck family." And
yeah,
Walt says, "Well, my cancer is back. I can't. I'm gonna be dead in 6 months anyway." And Hank, says, "Good, rot in hell." And it's this thing where Walt is kind of saying, "I'm gonna be, even if you find the evidence, I'm gonna be dead before you can put me in a jail cell. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, it's not worth your time." He's basically begging for his life. Well, he's basically begging for his family's lives, you could say, because their lives are going to be affected if they find out he's cooking meth. But Hank's like, "No, like, I'm taking you down. If it's the last thing I do on this job, you're going to jail until you die in that cell." But Walt is still got some confidence in him. He says, "Well, Hank, you know my track record, and I advise you to tread lightly."
yeah. Basically, scene where Hank is like, I don't even know who you are anymore. He's like, if you
Yeah.
don't know who I am, well, don't piss me off,
Mhm.
essentially. And that's how the episode ends. And it's really kind of like, okay, like Hank knows and Walter knows Hank knows. So
Yeah.
where do we go from here? A couple questions I have for you, Dougie, about like how Walter handled this. So there's two ways of thinking about it. First is, would you have even brought up the bug on the car, or
No.
would you have just drove around, lived your normal life, and basically not given Hank anything to think that you are who he thinks you are?
I think I probably would have taken the latter and just drove around, try to live a normal lifestyle, try to seem straight and narrow, because we see what happens when he gets in Hank's face. It does him no good to go see Hank, because I I still think Hank would have not believed him, but staying away from Hank is the smarter approach here, in my opinion, anyway. So how about you?
Oh yeah. And then even on top of that, if Hank were to confront you about the book, well, it's easy for Walter to fall back on saying something like, me and Gail were both chemists. We were both great chemists or something of that matter. And like, I didn't want to bring it up after Gail's death because it would have made him, anyways, you could have done a better line. I didn't find Walter tried all that hard to say, hey, like, no, this isn't me. Basically during the conversation, it even sounded like he was borderline admitting to being
Yeah.
Heisenberg, right? So, I
Yeah, he
mean,
basically
if
gave
you're not,
himself up.
if you're not going to fully deny it, then I don't know. Like, then you're basically screwing the pooch, because Hank knows, and Hank, how much Hank wants to get this guy.
Yeah, you're only giving him more ammunition to take you down, and you should know your audience as well. It's the key to communication. Hank is not going to be upset about you. You can't give a guy like Hank an emotional response, being like, "Okay, my cancer's back. I'm dying." No, that might work on your aunt, or somebody that's not Hank's. I've heard this term used lately, Shay. I'll probably use it wrong here. Your love language, or your love energy, or whatever that is. I don't understand it, but I know people got one. And bringing an emotional response to an aggressive person, an aggressive human being, is not the correct strategy in my opinion.
Yeah, I know he royally effed himself basically, but it's like we talked about earlier, right? Walter in more than one way wants to be recognized for, what
Yeah.
he is and what he's become. So maybe this was his plan all along. Maybe leaving that book there and, someone finding it and putting two and two together was, even if he didn't intentionally do that, maybe in the back of his mind, maybe that's something he wanted for himself.
Right. And if he's dead, he gets the recognition eventually. He gets, you are that drug lord. You are this great person. Even
Right.
if you're, legends, Pablo Escobar lives on, even though he's dead, he's known forever. As bad as a human being this guy was, Adolf Hitler will be referenced until the end of time for being Napoleon Bonaparte. It's just these really big, larger than life figures will forever be in history books, forever be referenced for the impact they had, and it can, it lingers on even when they are dead for, hundreds of years.
Exactly.
So episode 10, entitled Buried, starts with an old man waking up early in the morning. And I respect him getting up early in the morning, getting after it. Early bird gets the worm. And he starts the car and he's got his high beams on. He kind of notices that he's like, what's that in front of the car? And it's 10 grand in cash, the same thing that the homeless man got. And he looks across the street and there's another, there's money everywhere. Jesse is just throwing cash into, these low income neighborhoods, driveways. So he's like, what the hell? This Olga, he's clearly, not a great home, but he's like, wow. But he sees these lights in a park across the street and he walks down and Jesse's car is there. The car is still on, doors wide open, and the bags of cash just sitting there. He's kind of like looking at it like, what the hell is going on here? And we hear this squeaking sound, and Jesse is going around in circles on, do you know what this thing's called, Shay? I remember using it as a kid, but
Yeah, I know. I don't know. It's like a big old, merry-go-round or whatever you want to call it, the one
yeah,
you spin
he's
on.
just
It's the
he got his
spinny
feet on
thing.
the ground, pushing himself around in a circle.
Yeah, and it's a metaphor for maybe his mind just keeps on spinning and he has no way of stopping it because of the guilt he feels. Maybe me getting all
So
metaphoric.
he's just laying there, and yeah, he said the old guy's just like, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah.
We learn more about Jesse's deal later in the episode. So what I like about the start of this one, Jay, is it's Hank opening the garage to start episode 10, and Walt immediately, and I mean immediately, gets on the phone to call the car wash, and he goes, "Can I get Skylar on the phone?" And he's like, "Enrique, put Skylar on the phone." He goes, "What do you mean she's talking to somebody? Who's she talking to? Tell her to get off the phone." And we see the garage door open again. Hank is coming out on the phone. He has beaten Walter to the punch, and he's got Skylar on the other line.
Yeah. So immediately Walter takes off for the car wash, gets in there, and he's like, "Where's Skylar? Where's Skylar?" And Skylar is gone to meet Hank at some diner. And this is to me, this is like, partially because it's been so long since I watched this. I'm like, oh, like it's either she's gonna have to side one way or the other, and she's wanted Walt to get caught for so long. Maybe she just kind of flips over and dies and says, hey, this is my time for Walter to get caught, and I can finally be rid of this mess.
Right. And I think at the same point, she's juggling about her children and the thought process for her father, with their father. And does she get questioned? Did she know? Like, can she say that she did know the whole time? So she is also in potential trouble here. But Hank is there, gives her a big hug, and he's just like, okay, so what's going to happen. We're going to go to the house, get the kids, where it's safe from that monster. I don't know what you had to deal with. I don't know if he beat you, what happened, but it's done. It's over. And he said, I'm going to protect you, do everything I can. But he pulls out a little recorder and he says, I got to get your confession, as much as you can remember, so we can get this son of a bitch behind bars. And she's really uncomfortable with this scenario.
Yeah, she's basically like, we have to do this right now, like the first conversation we had. And Hank is a very proactive mind, and he's a very, a personality. He wants to get, when he wants something done, he wants it done right then and there. And in this case, it probably scared her away, thinking, okay, well, like when you panic somebody like Skylar's in the situation right now, obviously she might just flip over and say, "Hey, I'm not doing this right now. Like, what the hell is going on?" And I think that's what kind of happened here. She's just basically like, "Well, we like we're just having a conversation about this, and now you basically want me to fess up everything that I know." And one thing Skylar does is like, should I be here with a lawyer right now? Like, she doesn't even feel comfortable in the conversation she's having.
No. And he goes, well, no, you don't need a lawyer. Like, you know me, like you're fine. Like I'm going to do everything I can, for you. And she goes, well, I think I should get a lawyer. Like, what if, the district attorney doesn't want to help me, and he doesn't want to let me off the hook. I need a legal person. And he says, okay, we won't talk right now. Just get to the kids, go to the house, and we'll deal with it later. And she retorts with, am I under arrest? And he, to her credit, he doesn't say no. And he's kind of like, it's just, let's just deal with it. And she goes, Hank, am I under arrest? She continues to raise the volume of her voice. And as he grabs her arm, she yells, am I under arrest? And she kind of leaves the diner in a tiff.
If you're Hank, does that send you a message saying, okay, she's picked her side, like she's on the wrong side of this? Or is
it would for me, and it would also signal to me that she knew, because a wife that just found this out would not be defending her husband that much, in my opinion.
But to her credit, I mean, she, Hank kind of already knew that she knew some things, not all of it. She probably just knew, we'll say, the tip of the iceberg. But, she had that kind of mental breakdown where she kind of hopped in the pool, tried to drown herself.
Yeah.
And, so she does know some things. I think Hank knows that, but I feel like if you're Hank, you're like, oh, okay, maybe I came on too strong here. Maybe I shouldn't have, going back towards the recorder, maybe he shouldn't have should have just kept that away for their first conversation for this.
Yeah, go get the kids to his house first. Marie is there. Have Marie know before you have this conversation so that everybody's on the same page. Kind of, I agree. I think that would have been a better situation. Meanwhile, Huel and our good pal Bill Burr, Saul sent them on a mission. They are going to get the money at the storage unit, and before they get all that money out of there, again, a lot, over $5 million, Huel decides, hey, I got to do it, man. And he lays down on the big pile of money. And ultimately, Bill Burr joins him, and they kind of have this touching moment where they're just laying there on top of all this cash.
Yeah. If even if you haven't watched the show, you've probably seen the meme of just Huel just straight up chilling on there. But I mean, I don't think I could resist either.
No.
You're never ever going to get that opportunity again. And so what do? They get the money, they put it in barrels, and they put it in the back of a van. But before that, we see Walter at Saul's, and Skylar in a frantic, obviously calling him, and he's going, "Oh, I should answer this. I should answer this." And Saul says, "No, like you shouldn't even have your battery in your phone right now. Like you could be being tracked by them. You need to shut that down and deal with whatever you're about to deal with."
Right. And so he listens to Saul, and Saul says, so, it's a couple ways we can deal with this. There's the way I'd recommend is, we could, get rid of the DEA problem. We've done that in the past and it's worked out pretty well for us. And Walt goes, are you saying what I think you're saying? Well, you're not killing Hank. He's family. And Saul goes, okay. It's just an option. I'm just saying we'd be in a lot better position if he wasn't around.
Yeah, he tends to bring that option up quite a bit.
Yeah.
But credit to Walter. I mean, he does. At the end of the day, whether Hank becomes his biggest problem or becomes his downfall, at least he is loyal enough to say, I don't, I still don't want Hank to die. Like he's still like a brother to him, essentially.
Yeah. Saul's right. In a bad sense. I mean, he still wants to make money, but he's so the two boys show up. It's basically 8 barrels loaded full of cash. And Walt's like, yeah, don't worry. I'm going to check to see if it's all here before they can even talk about it. Cause he will kind of
share a look.
Mexico. And Bill Burr's like, he killed like the last 3 guys that tried to take money from him. So no, that's not happening. He will. And what does he do? He takes the shovel, and it's this cool scene where he kind of drives into the desert, but it's near where they originally cooked. If you can recall the first episode where Walt is in his undies, where they put the RV in the ditch, he's got the gun behind his back. It's basically off that main drag, and he goes in there and he starts digging a massive, massive pit.
Yeah. He's, this is something that takes him all day and basically almost most of the night to do. And, finally he kind of gets it in there. But before that, I think we're, we pivot to Skylar, who's, trying to call Walter, obviously. And who shows up but Marie and Hank.
Yeah, this is tough.
Tough scene. Yeah.
Yeah. So Marie says, "Can I come in?" And Skylar says, "Yes." But no Hank. He's not coming in. So they go to the bedroom and they sit down, and she says, like, "Please tell me Hank is wrong and I'll believe you." And she can't. She has to be honest with it. She doesn't say anything. That's the thing. And she starts crying. And Marie says, "Skylar, the crash, the gambling, it was all a lie." And she says, "Did you know before Hank was shot?" And before Skylar can, really apologize or even she goes, "Marie, it was a whole lot." Marie just straight up slaps her. The Schrader household was in a feisty move. Hank punches him. Marie slaps her sister and leaves the room. And it gets worse because she tries to grab Holly from the playpen and basically, abduct her from the home.
Yeah, it's never a great look. And you could see Holly's getting more and more worked up as she starts bawling her eyes out. And, Marie kind of waves and says, "Hank, like, come in here and help me," basically. And Hank enters, and they kind of get into like a screamy match. Like, it's not safe here. I've got to take her away. Like, this isn't like, this baby can't be in this home, essentially. Like, this, what did she say? Like, is it madhouse or drug house or something like that? Mm-hmm. And, Hank kind of, the voice of reason here says, "Marie, get the damn baby back. Like, what are we going to do? Abduct a child and bring more concern on us right now? Like, no." And so who do you side with here? Your moral compass. Are you like, okay, Marie, take this baby away? Or are you like, kind of like, okay, Skylar?
I think Skylar made the right decision. I think Hank made the right decision, because Skylar hasn't committed a crime. He can't prove really that Walter has done anything wrong yet, if you really think about it. So yes, they're a family, but you still can't steal a baby for that. That's a child abduction. That's a federal charge. So he's got to you got to let the baby stay with their mother. So I think Hank was smart here, but you can tell Marie, she has some Hank in her. And she gets to the car and she says, "You have to get him, Hank. You have to get him."
Yeah, drives away, and that's all Hank needs, a little motivation to basically save his niece and nephew, and maybe sister-in-law. I guess I don't know how he feels about
Skylar. Who knows about her? So Walt is there basically from mid-afternoon till the nighttime. By the time he's done, it's pitch black out. He's this massive, massive pit. I mean, you can talk about the energy it would take to do this with one person, let alone a guy with cancer that's killing him. So he gets the latitude and longitude of the area so he doesn't forget where it is. Gets that, and then he gets it on lotto numbers so he doesn't forget, which is really clever. Hands it on the fridge. But as he gets home, Skylar's like, "Why are you so dirty? What the hell happened?" And before he can even get the words out, he's in his underwear and he passes out on the bathroom floor.
Yeah, like really smokes his head, and
Yeah.
wakes up maybe like 4 or 5 hours later and still on the floor. Skylar's like, what the hell's going on? Like, Hank knows, what happened, like how did he find out? And so Walter admits it. He just kind of says it's my fault. Like I let detail slip, and Walter's kind of like he's already thinks Skylar's flipped at this point. He's saying, I know you made a deal with Hank. Like I don't care about anything else. Just don't let anybody take the money away from us. That's money I've earned, and if I die or if I get caught and they take the money away, this is all for nothing. So keep the money and give it to our children is basically his dying wish.
Yeah, and Skylar, she's like, you can't give yourself up, but you still take the money. So you gotta stay quiet about this. Don't cause any drama. They have no reason to suspect you. And it's Skylar again, kind of sticking up for Walter, staying on his side of the coin when she could easily, but clearly the money means something to her as well, because she's built a car wash. She's went through the whole Ted drama. And I do think this would really look bad on her, people knowing that her husband was a meth dealer.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And, kind of basically reassuring him that, she hasn't made a deal, and also goes to point in saying like Hank has lickety shit on you. He just has basically suspicions. So, you can do with that what you will. And yeah, I mean, I at this point, it seems weird that Skylar's so far on Walter's side, just based off of how the first half of the season went. Like this first half of the season, she wished that he got cancer and died again.
Yeah.
Says basically, she was just a mess, and she's kind of, we could say, as good as she's ever been, but it's funny that I don't know, it's just funny that she's turned a switch and she's back on Walter's side.
Yeah, I wonder if that has anything to do with the fact that would her children respect her? Because it's gonna come back that she knew. So if they turn against Walter, it's a turning the heel on her as well, because they were kicked out of the house for 3 months. It doesn't take a rocket scientist for Junior to say, well, it's because you guys were dealing drugs, or, he can lead down a path. He's already not his mother's biggest fan. So maybe it's more of, I want to protect my image with my son. And I don't want to, have him live with Hank and Marie the rest of my life while my husband's dead and it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, that's a good point. Also, one thing we kind of missed during this episode, Hank tells Skylar that Walter's cancer is back. So this was obviously news to her. It was a big reveal, and she kind of, asked Hank, or asked Walt, says like, how long has your cancer been back for? And he tells her like he doesn't think he has that long of a lifespan left based off of what he knows.
Right. Yeah. He said, I have limited time left here. So it's kind of waiting out the clock for him before and not get caught too much until he's dead. So this episode's really about family to me. And this is the one point it really differs is Lydia. Lydia Quayle is still in the meth business, and she's in a truck with a few of Declan's men. She's got a blindfold on, so she doesn't know where they're meeting. And she goes to meet with Declan. And, she's upset with the quality. She says, it cooks under 70%. It's not good enough. And they drive out to this basically like a band. It looks like an old abandoned. He's got old trucks and old buildings, and she wants to see the cook site. And he asked one of his boys to move a truck, and it's basically underneath in this bunker in this little makeshift RV lab thing. And she goes, "Are you kidding me? Like, it's filthy down here. It's really old equipment. Like, this is just so bush league. Like, Heisenberg would never, ever have cooked here."
Yeah, she really calls him down to the lowest, and Declan basically not having says, well, I produce what I produce. I have no more, Walter's out of the picture. So basically he runs the meth game for, that area.
Yeah.
And, all of a sudden we kind of start to hear some trucks pull up, and, Lydia's checking her phone, and we find out that she was there for more than one purpose.
Yeah. So he goes, we hear something and he goes, she kind of says, like, hire Todd. At least he cooked 74%.
Oh, yeah.
That's better. And he goes, no, like, screw Todd. He's fucking weird. I don't like him. I trust my guys. I don't trust him. She goes, okay. And like you said, they hear the trucks, and all we hear is no, no, no. Automatic weapons start going off. And we hear the shaft open, and it's Todd. He goes, ma'am, it's all clear. You okay down there? And she's climbing up this ladder with her 8-inch heels on. And she goes, Todd, like, I don't want to see any of it. He goes, okay. He kind of looks up and he goes, probably best to keep your eyes closed then. And he grabs her arm, he starts walking her to the car, and we see Declan is still alive. He's kind of climbing, and Todd goes, Uncle Jack. And while he's in the midst, Uncle Jack walks right up to Declan, shoots him in the back of the head. And before they leave, he tells his boys, grab all the gear. We're taking it with us. So he's grabbing all the meth equipment, clearly indicating that they want to be the new leaders in the meth business now that Declan and Heisenberg are out.
Yeah, new blood, this new kind of alliance between Lydia and Todd. I mean, we realized the connection with when Heisenberg stepped out. But yeah, Lydia making moves like this. It wouldn't have been Todd to think of, okay, well, I'll show you exactly where to go and you come here. It would have been Lydia saying, okay, I'll lead you to where these guys are. You take them out, and then we can kind of take the middleman out of this business.
Right. So yeah, so Uncle Jack's got all the equipment. It looks like he's going to be the new kingpin here. So Marie's talking to Hank. They kind of discuss how they're both not going to work, but she says, I think you should go. And she says, go bring your information. Like, tell them what's going on. Like, you have more than enough here to present a case that they can look into it. And he says, Maria, I can't. When I go in there, the second I tell them this, my career is over. When I go in there, I'm bringing proof, and I'm going to arrest that son of a bitch if it's the last thing I do, because I have to leave my career with some dignity that I arrested this monster after all of this.
I know. And she goes, and to her credit, I never even thought at this point, she goes, well, if if they happen to catch him before you do, then it's going to look like you basically hid the information and didn't say anything when you could have. And you'll you'll be trialed just like he will. So this kind of forces Hank to get back in the office, and he's wary. He's going in, but everyone clearly loves him. So, it's, hey, Hank, how's it going? And he gets to his office, and Gomi walks in, basically says, oh, I had to see it from my own eyes. And he's like, okay, it looks like Hank is going to set up a meeting, basically a presser, just to basically announce what he's known. He's going to bring the big wing in, Danning or Dammy or something like that. I forget what the guy who hired him. And before he can do that, he gets a little sniff that one of our favorite characters is inbounded, and the light goes off for him.
Yeah, Gomi goes, yeah, like, sure, I'll set that up. But did you hear the big news? And he goes, no, what? He goes, about the money thing. He goes, no, what money thing? He says, well, it's about your old pal Pinkman. He just got arrested, having a bunch of cash with him. And he's like, Pinkman. And he remembered that he got the call from when he was chasing Jesse. So we see Jesse's in lockup, still as completely out to lunch as he was before. And funny enough, it's the two guys talking to him that were interrogating him about Brock, who he can't stand. And they're like, yeah, we can do this all day, Jesse. Like, we got nowhere to be. And he's like, I can hold a piss for like 48 hours. So we can do this all day. But he's La La Land staring at the wall. They decide to leave the room. We see Hank go by the glass. And he's shaking hands with the two officers. And he says, you know what, guys? Pinkman really fucking hates me. Like, he hates me. He hates even looking at my face. You guys aren't getting anything from him. Why don't you guys go have a smoke, have a coffee? I'll go in there, rattle his cage a little bit. You guys come back, finish the job, and any news that I get, I'll share with you. But I just want to ask him a few questions too. And they're like, it sounds like a good idea. Can you just watch our prisoner for us for a minute? Absolutely. A little cop talk. And the episode ends with Hank walking in and the door shutting behind him.
Yeah. I mean, really gets your juices going because obviously next episode's a really good one. But yeah, you just know like the history between these two, and leaving it at kind of on a cliffhanger is a great way to end this episode. So, and yeah, like Jesse's just out to like the entire time these two guys are yapping at him, and he's not even giving them the time of day. He's like basically looking at the ground, and couldn't be more out to lunch, to your point exactly. So great episode, and yeah, looking forward to these two getting reconnected next week.
Yeah, really fun episode coming up with these two, and the mental state and what lengths he's willing to go to get Walter is really intriguing as well. But yeah, I mean, two really interesting episodes. I mean, the family aspect and Skylar sticking by her man is definitely an intriguing choice by Vince Gilligan. I think it adds more. Obviously, it keeps the story going. If she rats him out, he's in lockup in about 5 seconds. She also gets $0. So again, there's a little bit of selfish.
It's like, is she doing it for herself / her kids, or is she doing it for Walter? We don't really know.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Probably a mix of both, because he is still her husband, and at his core, when he's not the meth guy, he's a good father. He's a decent man, but it's hard. The blurred lines there. It's hard to figure out who's who sometimes. Shay, good pod tonight. Still no news on your guy Jason Spezza. I know he's having his in-person hearing today. I thought we'd hear the news on the suspension. What do you expect, and anything else you got in the go this week?
We talked about this earlier. I wouldn't be surprised they gave Neil Poink the same game. They gave him 2 games for the knee on knee. I wouldn't be surprised if he got 2 games as well. It was definitely a violation and a suspendable cause. So I think he'll probably get a 2-gamer. As for the rest of the week, just try to keep low, my friends. Got some Christmas shopping around the corners, and of course, I get to see one of my favorite visitors finally come up and see my place. So
yeah,
looking forward to that. 2 flicks I watched over the weekend. I know both of them you're going to hate because of the context. One is a Marvel movie, which I know you won't
which one?
take part in. So since the new Spider-Man's coming out, I watched the first one. I've never watched any of the Tom Holland ones, so I watched the Tom Holland one, and it was okay. It was pretty good. But then I also watched Jungle Cruise with your favorite actor, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Yeah, I'm not going to comment on that. He's the word acting has really gotten lowered the standards when he acts. But yeah, I think I seen the preview for the No Way Home or Far Away or whatever it's called. I think it's intriguing. The concept. I saw Dr. Octavius, and he's my favorite villain in the Spider-Man series. But I seen that Willem Dafoe is going to return as Green Goblin too. Like, Tobey Maguire sucked, but they were way better villains than Jamie. What was Jamie Foxx? Electro.
Yeah.
That sucked. Like, that was garbage. And that stupid snake or whatever.
Oh, the lizard one.
Lizard was stupid.
He's back too. Yeah.
See, yeah. So is Tobey Maguire going to be in the movie?
Well, that's the big thing. They think that Garfield is going to be in it for sure, what's his name? Is it
Andrew Garfield, yeah.
Yeah, he's going to be in it for sure, but they don't know if Maguire's going to be back in it. I think it's interesting because it applies for all timelines of, you got guys like us who grew up watching Maguire,
Right.
and then maybe people a little bit younger than us who would have watched Andrew Garfield. So I could see why it's a smart idea in the sense that it's going to draw more people to the theaters because they're saying, well, I can relate to some of these people. So yeah, that's why I wanted to watch the first one. I'll probably watch the second one in the next couple of weeks and maybe watch the other one in theaters. Maybe not.
I think it's smart. I mean, Marvel knows what they're doing. I think they produce a lot of crap, but I think I think this is an intriguing one for me. Again, the guy who plays Dr. Octavius, I think he's a fantastic actor. I forget his name top of my head, but Willem Dafoe, I know we both love him. He was fantastic as the Green Goblin. He's great in everything he does. But I hope Tobey's in the movie. And I don't think Tobey Maguire is a great Spider-Man by any means, but I think it'd be cool. Like if he wanted a big check to be in the movie, I think that's warranted. He did his role. They were supposed to do a fourth movie and they cut him out. Like if I'm Tobey Maguire, I'm not returning just because I'm a nice guy and want to, be a part of this Spider-Man Christmas bonanza. Like give me a good check and I'll go hang out with, Garf and Zendaya for a little bit and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and he's not even going to be the main guy, so he probably has like 3-4 scenes. Yeah, and then but if he can still secure a bag, I mean that's all you really need to do. And Marvel just hands out checks like it's nobody's business. So I'm sure he will get a nice look.
This movie must be big budget because Willem Dafoe is not coming back for pennies, and even the guy who played the Lizard is a really good actor too. I've seen him in a lot of stuff. He's a British actor. But he's good too. Jamie Foxx, again, I don't think he's a great actor. But was right. I mean, you know this better than me, Shay, but there was never one movie that was just the Rhino. I want that. If there's ever a movie, again, it can't be Rhino and the Flash or Rhino and another villain. I want Rhino. I will watch that movie. I'll go to the theaters with you if there's ever a Spider-Man where Rhino is the villain.
Yeah. Well, you might be. I can't think of his name. The guy who's in Billions, the chubbier guy, not the.
Paul Giamatti.
They tried to make him the Rhino, and it was like a slight cameo at one of the end of the Garfield movies, and that's it. Like you didn't even get to see the fight or anything. So, and then they cut Garfield out. So then it was like, okay, well, it's not going to happen. But hey, that'd be an interesting concept. He's a cool character. Anyone who knows, I guess, the old comics or the old cartoons. I'm sure me and you watched.
Yeah, I used to be a big cartoon guy of Spider-Man back in the day. But yeah, and I'm gonna try to get to House of Gucci this week. I plan on going Friday because I got to buy some Christmas gifts like yourself. So, gonna get to that. Let me know how far from home goes, or far away or whatever. But Jungle Cruise, is that like Jumanji spinoff?
It was funny. I saw a meme where it was like 4 movies of The Rock doing the same thing. He's just like a jungle guy, like he's this big buff, big dummy, and essentially it's like it's basically his life character now. No, it was a pretty good story. Funny enough, Todd, who's in Breaking Bad, is in that movie.
Oh, yeah.
So it's kind of a little cameo for him. Emily Blunt's in it too. I don't know if anyone likes Emily Blunt. She's a great actor. But yeah, no. So it was an interesting movie, interesting concept.
Actually, one of the last movies I've watched, because as you know, it's been a minute since I've watched one, was that one with her on the girl in the train. Is that what I think that's what it's called? It was a book.
Yeah.
It became a good movie. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, it is. It is. I haven't read the book, but I've been told it's great. My mom's read it, and she says it's fantastic.
Yeah. So yeah,
she's like an Elkie, right?
Yes. Yeah, Elkie, and nobody believes her that she witnessed the murder, and so. No, good stuff. I'll see you Saturday. We'll prep for some toxic masculinity and some further bonding. But have a great rest of the week, and we'll talk Saturday.
All right. Take care, buddy.
Everybody, thanks for tuning in tonight. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next Tuesday as always, and stay healthy, and we'll chat soon.